Presentation is tough, and not taking much of time, we'll be moving on to our next session, which is Symposium 2, and the theme is Regional Session, Emerging Challenges and Opportunities. All CR countries are implementing WHO Empower package and best buys for prevention and control of tobacco. However, the growing use of new and emerging products such as ENDS and shisha, hookah, especially among the youth, in posing a real challenge for the countries. I give the handover to our moderator, Dr. Sonu Goyal, for introducing the chair for the session and moving on to our further proceedings. Over to you, Dr. Sonu.
So a very good afternoon, everyone, again. So we are moving to our second symposium for this summit. That is a regional session on emerging challenges and opportunities. So I take my pleasure in inviting Dr. Jagdish Kaur, who is a regional advisor in Tobacco Free Initiative WHO Regional Office, Southeast Asia, New Delhi. She is a medical doctor and public health expert with immense experience in tobacco control, first with the government, now with the WHO. Before joining WHO, she has worked in the government Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, where she has spearheaded this national tobacco control program, has led to development of various policies and legislations. He also looked after mental health, oral health issues, healthcare of elderly, deafness, telemedicine, and digital health. Besides being a policymaker, she has published immensely in many international and national journals of repute. And she has many chapters in the training modules, guidelines, and several books on non-communicable disease and tobacco control. So welcome, ma'am. Welcome to this symposium, for chairing this symposium.
Thank you, Dr. Sonu, for a very kind introduction. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so now I'll hand over to you for introducing, ma'am, our speakers for the day. So you can introduce our speakers. Firstly, Dr. Mahesh Raj Surya.
Okay, so good afternoon, colleagues. Our first speaker is Dr. Mahesh Rajasuriya from Sri Lanka. He's director of the Center for... I'm not able to read the screen. Just a minute.
It's combating tobacco.
Just a minute. He's director of CCT at the Tobacco Observatory in Sri Lanka, hosted by Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo. He's also a senior lecturer at the Department of Psychiatry of the same university and is a consultant psychiatrist at the University Psychiatry Unit at the National Hospital of Sri Lanka, Colombo. He is a member of the Expert Committee on Tobacco, Alcohol and Illicit Drugs of Sri Lanka Medical Association and the chairman of Alcohol and Drug Information Center and vice patron at NEST Sri Lanka. Welcome, Dr. Rajasuriya, for this symposium.
Thank you, Chair. So I think we all relate, so I'll start straight away. This is on emerging challenges and opportunities in South Asia through the eye of the CCT and also SAARC CCT. So first, what CCT and SAARC CCT are. It's the Tobacco Observatory of Sri Lanka, Center for Combating Tobacco, and our information portal is tobaccounmasked.lk. And SAARC CCT is the South Asian Regional Consortium Center for Combating Tobacco, the Regional Tobacco Observatory, and our information portal is tobaccounmasked.asia. Right, back to the contents of my talk. Number one, tobacco industry interference during COVID pandemic. Let me start from Sri Lanka. So this is media reporting the Ceylon Tobacco Company's parent company, BAT, British American Tobacco, developing COVID-19 vaccine. Moving on to Bangladesh, there are many examples of interferences. BAT Bangladesh introducing hand sanitizer, donating PPEs for public hospitals, and The smokeless tobacco producer Manikchand Group maintains the COVID-19 related patient count in Bangladesh online. Moving on to India, so many examples of interferences, country being so large and populous, we can understand that. So I'm not going to, the whole list is not even shown here. I'm not going to read them, but I would show you some picture examples of interference. So this is tobacco companies donating money to the COVID response, and ITC jelly malls, all these years targeting children in a complementary way for the tobacco industry. And now they have intensified their activities during the COVID-19 era targeting children. Kerala government and ITC collaborating to break the chain. And again, Manikchand Group advertising in a way that is appropriate to the COVID-19 era. Pan BD exempt from lockdown in Bengal, Chief Minister. Right, moving on to Pakistan. So in a 2017 raid, Pakistani authorities found PMI, Philip Morris International, using its former shutdown factory, producing cigarettes to evade tax. This has caused a tax shortfall of 47 billion rupees between 2015 and 2018. And now, ladies and gentlemen, during this COVID period, they want to reopen that factory. Right. So let me come back to the next section of my presentation. Number 2, Smoke-Free Foundation paying more attention to the region. Right. We heard that BRAC, a world-renowned NGO in Bangladesh, receiving a grant from Smoke-Free Foundation, but they had to return the money because of the pressure from the tobacco control camp in Bangladesh. But, ladies and gentlemen, there are so many grantees from this region. If you go to the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World website and checked, so there are 2 grantees from Pakistan, 2 more in addition to BRAC from Bangladesh, 2 from India, and 1 from Maldives. And this is a database from 2018. Right. Now, have you heard of Conrad Challenge? A transformative educational experience. The Conrad Challenge brings science and technology studies to life through a student-driven project-based approach. And can you guess who the primary sponsors are? Well, number 1, Foundation for a Smoke-Free World. This is their project. And they are now organizing 2020 Virtual Innovation Summit under many categories such as energy and environment, health and nutrition, don't laugh, smoke-free world, repurposed farmlands and tobacco crops, eliminating and reducing teen vaping and so on. And they have targeted South Asian region. So we have 1 team among the finalists from South Asia. Right, let's move on to number 3. Leading examples to the whole world emerging from South Asia. We just cannot forget the success story of Bhutan, the overall comprehensive tobacco ban in Bhutan. Bhutan, we salute you. And tobacco ban in India during COVID pandemic, a really commendable act. And then this is that historic order dated 15th April 2020. And if you look at points number 5 and 6, you can see how the wording of banning tobacco products and spitting, and they have banned alcohol as well. Moving on to another example from India, taking the lead in banning e-cigarettes, another very commendable act. But last but not least, world's first regional tobacco observatory was born in South Asia last year in the name of SARC-CCT and Tobacco Unmasked South Asia, incorporating all the 8 countries in the South Asian region, powered by the Union. Right, so let's move on to number 4, new products, challenges, and victories. And I'm going to show you only this slide. Look at this picture. Pay your attention to this picture. How many dollars, time, energy you have gone into this picture. Look at the lighting, the light creep in through the fingers and color in the smoke dancing in front of your eyes. This is how they hijack the psychology of young people. Therefore, I commend the victory story from India, banning e-cigarettes. That's the way to go. And this is how it was reported on BBC. You see a familiar picture and wondering why? Sri Lanka is following through as well. Actually, we banned e-cigarettes even before India in 2016 through a gazette notification, but we are yet to incorporate it into law. Last, number 5, usual routine tobacco industry interference. It's happening all the time through government officials, through politicians in every country in South Asia, business as usual. So ladies and gentlemen, that's what all I wanted to present to you. I would like to invite you to this webinar, Tobacco Industry Manipulation of Children and Youth in South Asia region, this Sunday. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. So our next speaker is Mr. Syed Mahbulal Alam. He's technical advisor of the Union Bangladesh, a public health and environmental expert, and working on policy advocacy issues for over almost 2 decades now. And he holds a law degree from World University of Bangladesh and an advocateship from Bangladesh Bar Council. He pursued global leadership in tobacco control course from Johns Hopkins and also the advocacy training from Advocacy Institute. He is founder of the Center for Law and Policy Affairs, a policy advocacy and research-based NPO organization, and co-founder of Save the Environment Movement, a leading civil society organization in Bangladesh. He had served as director at WBB Trust, a policy advocacy organization, and legal expert on tobacco control law and policy drafting committee of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare of Bangladesh. So welcome Mr. Alam to this symposium. So we wait for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's really my honor to join this conference. So you know that in Bangladesh, in Bangladesh and India, we have the very similar so many things. One of the challenging things in Bangladesh is the random selling of the tobacco in everywhere. You find everywhere people are selling tobacco, and the selling tobacco there is only not the problem. There is another problem. They are involving the minors and industry. When the government decided to ban the ad, then the industry start using it a promotional work. Using data portion. So we are thinking to start the introduce licensing. So let's explain that why licensing is important. The main purpose is that one. It is we want to reduce the easy accessibility of the tobacco product, because as I say that one, you'll find a lot of tobacco selling around the school, hospitals, and very nearby. Random selling. The company marketing when the tobacco advertisement banned, now industry using them for the PSU, mainly PSU type of tobacco advertisements, mainly operate by the small vendors. We are trying to ban the small tobacco sales around the 100 meters educational institute and health institute. Besides that, we are trying to implement the few section of the implementation of tobacco control law, like the advertisement, ban sale to the minors, and picture warning on the tobacco products. So this is the one of the things that we are thinking that how to implement, and then we are thinking to introduce the licensing. And another thing that one we are trying to involve the local government in this process. Thank you. Next, please. So when we started that one in Bangladesh, there is so many things. We start thinking that introduce licensing in 2016. Then one organization is called the Aid Foundation. They came forward and they submitted a proposal to the Union and the Bloomberg for introduce licensing in the 18 municipality and 5 city corporation in the 12 district. 22 district of 2 divisions. So this was a model project we developed in 2016, and we are planning how to implement that one. That was a very small risk program. We have because that in Bangladesh there is no clear direction in the law about the licensing. So that we taken the model project in 2016, and one of a local NGO is called the Aid Foundation. They take this leadership to start the work. Next, please. So when we start that one, that's a two challenge. One thing is that one, the random selling every place is cigarette is the one of the traditional things in Bangladesh. If you in Bangladesh, you find everywhere people are selling cigarette. Even you find this cigarette in the any grocery shop, small shop, and this is you can see that in the picture. There's a moving vendor who are carrying this tobacco. They are selling tobacco in different places, the public place, transport, and other. So this is the very common scenario and very challenging issue. Another problem is that one, there is no clear direction regarding the licensing, the tobacco control law and the local government law. We are trying to, the central government, as I say, that tobacco control law only the regulated by the National Tobacco Design Ministry, and the tobacco control law there is no clear provision about that one. So we are trying to look on the local government law. So local government law, there is no clear direction about the vendor licensing or the tobacco control licensing. There's a very small tobacco in the municipality tax guideline. There is the small things they mention about the licensing, but there is no clear things. But there's a huge community, and as you know that the industry has a huge lobbying also there, so it is a very challenging. And this kinds of work is not possible to implement by the central government. So we are trying to involve the local government. So in the local government, what we did, we find out the local government has a provision that if anyone run business in the local government area, he have to be obtain a license from the local government. Without license, no one can operate business. So this is tobacco selling also one kind of business. We try to motivate our local government leaders that they are operating a business, so they have to take the license from the local government. Yeah, next please. So this journey is not very easy. When we place this argument, obviously the local government people, this is very common, and most of the local government, there's a lot of business are running. They are not taking license, and in this movement, when we raise this issue, the local government leaders looking for the evidence. One problem is that most of the people who are selling this tobacco in the road and different places, mainly they are very poor. They are common logic. They have nothing to do. They are operating business. So communities very sympathize regarding this people. So we conducted a survey and identified that how many people is there. We prepared a list of vendors. We have a lot of advocacy with the local leaders to endorse the memorandum for introduce licensing. We as you know that the parliament member are centrally work, but in Bangladesh context, the parliament member has very good influence in the local government leaders, local government institute also. So we sensitize the parliament member in our project area. We meet with the decision maker like the district commissioners and divisional commissioners, sensitize them. We work with the media people to support the media, gain the media support, and create the public support campaign that they support us and sensitize the other stakeholders like who is the member in Bangladesh. We have a task force committee in the local level. So we sensitize the task force committee members, the business owners, the bazar, the market committee, and the other enforcement agency. Then we prepared, after the all the consultation, we prepared a guideline for the local government that this is the guideline that they can follow for introduce licensing in that area. And we also support the local government to introduce the licensing. So in Bangladesh, two things. Before do any policy work in the central level, we try to work in the local level and grassroots level, very small range, and try to find out the possibility and challenges. So in this area, we introduce this licensing in one municipality. It's called the Chinoitaho. It's a very small municipality. We sensitize them and introduce licensing and try to learn that what the challenge we are facing. So that our start the journey, and we are success in the Chinoitaho. Next, please. So as I say that one, when we before the licensing, introduce the licensing, we have a very good survey and we try to find out the understand the situation. In our working area, we found that 2022 to 23,022 200 over 2200 unregulated vendors are operating business. So when we show this data to the local government authority, that you can get that good amount of tax from these people, and also you can, if you can regulate them, by that way it will be very good support for the public health, and they support us almost as most of the vendors has no licensing, and they also want that the licensing should be introduced, because the without licensing business, it's really so many problems. They are facing so many problems due to there is no licensing. Next, please. Um, Another things as I say that one, the vendors, the as industry using them for the promotional activities, so many things that they are providing to the vendors to hand over to the consumers. So they are working as a mediator. So we find out so many very interesting information from them. Another thing that one. They most of we found that a very huge number of people they are selling tobacco, they are minors, so that is a direct violation of tobacco control law. Next, please. So that's that for the advocacy efforts with that in our municipal project area. As I say that 18 municipality and 5 city corporation, we try to motivate with 200 ward councillors. We meet with each councillors and motivate them to endorse the memorandum for introduce licensing. 10 MPs and 10 Jila Parishad, the local government, one of the local government, they supporting for the license, motivate them that they have to, so they endorse the memorandum. Yes, the licensing should be introduced. Then we also meet with the 9 district tobacco control law implement task force committee, and they also recommended for the regulate the tobacco selling by the local government. So this is our background work before that one we have done, and successfully these people are with us to support this initiative. Next, please. um, After this the things, this is still we are working in the local level. There's the and we successfully motivate 19 municipalities first to take the 19 municipality authority take decision that introduce licensing in their area. Only the 13 municipality they already implement that decision in their working area. They partially they introduce licensing. It's really a hard job to identify the people and regulate them. And then with this experience, we start working with the national government to introduce a national guideline for all over the country. Next, next, please. Then this is the initiative. We start working with the national government. We bring this knowledge to the national government. We will start working with our local government ministry and our Ministry of Health. So we in this journey, our another partners, the CTFK and the grantee also join. Dhaka Asana Mission, one of our BI grantee, they also joined this initiative, and we support the Ministry of uh, Local Government Institute and the Ministry of Health to draft a guideline for the national guideline for national tobacco guideline for the local government ministry. So it was a long journey. In this time, we faced so many interference from the tobacco industry. Tobacco industry raised so many things. They are opposed that one. This kind of licensing will be a challenged implementation. It will be a create jobless. It will be create corruption. So many things they try to conduct. They also, as part of the rules of business, that kinds of guideline, prepared guideline is a jurisdiction of the ministry, but they try to motivate the ministry to send it for the legal vetting and try to delay this process. So this is a long journey, but as I say that one, we have a huge background work. We try to work with the policymakers. We have the clear evidence from the 13 municipalities. They implement this decision. So we really counter all the TNTI argument what they submit to the different places. Next, please. So this is the consultation. This the drafting committee is first initiated by the ministry and the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Local Government. They also establish a committee and Ministry of Health join with them. The drafting committee work over the 1 year and collect comments from the different groups, not only the tobacco control, from the different ministries, different stakeholders, and finalize that guideline. Next, please. Next, please. So this is the guideline. If you can see that on the please next previous slide, please. So this is the guideline. You can see that on this guideline, this published by the local government, the guideline. So now we are trying to implement in the all over the country. So we have there is innovation. We are following a method. It's called IOR method. IOR method is a process that we are following for the law implementation. IOR meaning that we are collecting information, then create the awareness, then sending the warning, and then we are drive for the enforcement, and then we are again collecting the reporting and try to assess the situation. We have developed a mobile app. With these apps we implement in these apps we already implemented the one division is called pollution division. So we collect all the information. Those people are operating business in the district and sub-district area. We collect their numbers, location, their type of business, all the information, and submit this information to the local government and the district commissioner, those violating the tobacco control law. Next, please. So now we start working for the local government. We already.
You need to wind up soon, please.
Yeah, we have established a mayor alliance. So our mayor alliance is now work with us. The mayor alliance for healthy city is a forum for the mayors. So we are now working for the implementation the guidelines. So but we have to. There is so many challenges. As I say that one, lot of people are involved that one. So many people are minors and poor. So that argument is still coming. So we are looking. We are closely working with the mayor alliance and the mayors to implement this guideline. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Alam. So we have our next speaker with us, Dr. Nidhi Sejpal Purane. So she is the Senior Technical Advisor, Tobacco Control, the International Union, and she's a medical professional with post-graduation in public health and more than 8 years progressive work experience in healthcare programs, management, program implementation and coordination and capacity building. In the present capacity, she is working on strengthening enforcement of tap bans with focus on point of sale through tobacco vendor licensing in India. And prior to the union, she had worked with multidisciplinary areas such as NCDs, tobacco control, public health nutrition, AFP, and for routine immunization. So she has wide experience. Welcome, Dr. Nidhi. So over to you for your presentation.
Ma'am, your speaker is not on. Please switch on your speaker.
Dr. Nidhi, you need to switch on your speaker. We can't hear you. Dr. Nidhi, can you hear us?
Dr. Nidhi, you are not audible. You may please click on your mic.
Just on your, there are 3 dots.
Sometimes you are not able to find your speaker to mute. You just go down the screen. Go down the screen. Dr. Nidhi?
No. Dr. Nidhi, you can go to the 3 dots. I think on the 3 dots, you can find your mic. You can unmute yourself.
Dr. Sonu, is she listening to us? Can she?
She's able to listen, but I think her there's some audio problem there.
Or maybe.
I think we can go with the next speaker, ma'am. In the meantime, we can go with Dr.
I
Hassan.
think we can do that. In the meantime, we try to sort this out with her. Somebody can just get in touch with her on phone.
Yes.
And then try to resolve it. Okay.
We are just sharing the.
Hello.
Oh, now she's there. She's there. Okay, good.
Apologies, I've been trying to unmute for a pretty long time. Probably internet connectivity didn't.
Oh, yeah. That happens. Don't worry. Okay.
Sorry about that. Yes.
No. Okay.
So,
start, please.
Respected Chair, distinguished delegates and esteemed colleagues, thank you all very much for giving me this opportunity for being a part of WNTD 2020. So as we all know that WHO's FCTC is one of the most promising tobacco control policy measures that is being used in the countries, and in line with that, Empower package is another comprehensive measure which has supported the countries in working in the area of tobacco control. Under these strong policy pillars, there have been quite a few tobacco control measures which have emerged in the recent times. To name a few, I would say ban on sale of loose or single cigarettes, ban on sale of electronic cigarettes or heated tobacco products, implementation of Article 5.3, which is to protect the public health policies from the vested interest of the tobacco industry, so on and so forth. Another innovative tool which can be introduced, I believe, would be the policy of vendor licensing. So how tobacco vendor licensing can turn out to be an effective enforcement tool in enforcing the existing tobacco control policy is what we'll be discussing through today's presentation. So let's look at it. I wouldn't be getting into the nitty-gritties of the global tobacco burden because we all are aware that more than 8 million people each year are dying due to tobacco consumption. All I want to highlight here is that there is a very strong global commitment which also aligns with the SDG Goal 3 and Target 3A, that is to strengthen the implementation of WHO FCTC. Next, please. If we look at the implementation of tobacco control policy from a global perspective, we know that about 63% of the world's population, which is about more than 4.7 billion people, are now covered by at least one comprehensive tobacco control policy, which is a significant improvement. But however, it is critical to know what is the extent of the implementation and enforcement in a local settings, which is what I'm trying to highlight through this particular slide is that, could you click on the next, please? Strong policies always do not denote strong compliance. And without strong compliances, people are not protected, is what I'm trying to come to here. Next, please. Looking at the tobacco burden in India, we all know that India stands out to be one of the countries with the highest rate in terms of tobacco consumption, with about 266 million people being current tobacco users, with 42% being males and 14.2% being females tobacco consumers. Although we can see from the GATT's recent report of 2016 and 17 that there has been a significant progress in terms of controlling tobacco in India. However, the burden still continues to remain quite high. Looking at this menace of the tobacco epidemic, the government of India introduced some very strong laws which was also highlighted by my esteemed colleagues during their recent presentations. One would be the COTPA Act, the other would be the Juvenile Justice Act, the other would be the Food and Safety Standard Regulations Act of 2006, and the very own National Tobacco Control Program. So one might have this question in mind that despite of having such strong and stringent provisions in the country, why do we need to constantly keep coming up with such innovative ideas? So the answer to that question is, next slide, please. So despite of having such strong laws, the implementation and enforcement of these laws across the country is quite varied in terms of various levels. The implementation at district level is quite different, and the implementation from the state level is quite different. Secondly, if we also see, there are a very large number of point of sale of tobacco products which continue to be unregulated in the country, which means that the tobacco products are being sold through a lot of informal channels. As we know, practically every nook and corner of the India, we can see that tobacco vendors are available. And what does this lead to? It leads to not only poor enforcement of the existing laws, but it also basically leads to easy accessibility and availability of the tobacco products to the youth. So one of the key policy areas which could be considered in this particular situation would be the strict licensing of the tobacco vendors. Next, please. Requesting to go to the next slide, please. So what do I exactly mean by tobacco vendor licensing? It is nothing but a special license which is introduced or which is given by the government to all the vendors who wish to sell the tobacco products to the consumers in the market. The government basically chalks out a particular eligibility criteria as well as certain performance standards to which the vendors are expected to abide by. Any failure to do so gives the government the right to revoke or suspend their license. Also, the government can assign a certain fee for application of these particular licenses, which would in turn support the government by generating some funds for the administrative costs and also conducting inspection checks. Next, please. So if we look at some of the evidences across the world, there are internationally a number of countries which have already introduced the tobacco retail licensing and have found that by implementing such laws, it reduces the accessibility of the tobacco products to the youth, which is also in line with this year's WNTD theme. Next, please. If you look at overall benefits, as I have been mentioning time and again, the most important benefit is to reduce the accessibility and availability. How will it help us in reducing the accessibility? Regulating the location and the density of tobacco vendors in the vicinity. It will also help us in preventing the illegal or illicit trade. It will also help in protecting the youth from impulsive initiation of smoking behavior. It would enforce the already existing tobacco control laws in place. It would address health inequities, and it would also generate a self-financing mechanism to support the enforcement drives. Next slide, please. Next one. So as a central perspective, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare issued a central advisory in September 2017, which required the states to basically come up with an institutionalized mechanism where it had to give the vendors a license in order to sell any tobacco products in the respective state. It also put a ban on selling any confectionery items, which is the non-tobacco product items, such as chocolates, chips, candies, so on and so forth, along with the tobacco products. Next, please. And getting motivated from this national advisory, about 22 jurisdictions and many more are on the forefront in releasing these kind of notifications in their respective jurisdictions. So about 6 states have already released the notifications, and 16 municipal corporations have also been quite active in taking these steps. Next, please. So this is a successful example from Ranchi, where under Section 455 through the Municipal Corporation Act of Jharkhand, the vendor licensing has been introduced, which mandates that in the sale, production, manufacture of any of the tobacco products cannot be sold without a valid license, which is issued by the government. Also, the Section 482 subsection 2 mandates that the vendor needs to apply for a licensing fee. And last but not the least, that any reason for not abiding to the sections prescribed by the government has the right to revoke or suspend the license. Next, please. So this is just an example of how a municipal trade license looks like. Onto the left of the screen, and the right is the example of the application forms that would be required for the vendors in order to get the license. Next, please. Another successful example is the example from Kalimpong Municipal Corporation in the West Bengal. That too, through the Municipal Act, successfully has followed the suit in terms of introducing vendor licensing policy through the West Bengal Municipal Corporation Act of 1993 and 2006 under the sections 201 and 273 respectively, which would obligate that sales, storage, processing, packaging, manufacture of any of the tobacco products cannot be done without a specific license issued by the corporation. Next, please. So I'm almost coming to the end of my presentation. How is vendor licensing an opportunity? So as we know that there has been quite a bit of a ban on sale of tobacco products in terms of COVID, if we can have this vendor licensing introduced to regulate the point of sale, that would be a blessing in disguise. Also, tobacco-free generation would be another opportunity where, along with other important steps such as increasing the age and denormalization of tobacco products, this would be a good opportunity to strengthen the existing tobacco control laws. And last but not the least, the take-home message. Vendor licensing is a fairly novel concept which can be introduced to strengthen the tobacco compliance and also reduce the accessibility and availability of tobacco products in the country through the following methods which are stated on the slide. Thank you all very much for listening patiently. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Sonu, actually, Dr. Jagdish Kaur has problem with the internet connectivity. So you may carry on. Dr. Sonu? Dr. Sonu, are you with us?
Yeah. So I'll now introduce Mr. Hassan Mohabbat, who is a Deputy Director of Health Protection Agency, Ministry of Health, and heads both NCT division there and the National Tobacco Control Program. He is a passionate tobacco control advocate and known nationally as well as internationally in tobacco. And he started tobacco way back in 2001 when many countries have not even ratified, when FCTC was not there and there was no ratifications of that, the FCTC. And from 2007 onwards, he represented Maldives in most of the global tobacco control forums and platforms. In addition, he represents Maldives as WHO and other multilateral initiatives in prevention and control of national non-communicable diseases. He is also a member of Regional Technical Advisory Group on NCDs in Southeast Asia region. So over to Mr. Hassan Mohabbat for the virtual session.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Dr. Girl, how are you? And thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation. And it's good to be with friends in tobacco control from the region and particularly from India. I happen to know most of you, and let's get started. So, may I continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Can I move these slides myself?
Yes, sir. You have to. Yes, sir. You have to do that.
Okay. Yeah, it's working. Thank you very much. So my focus is on this topic of emerging challenges and opportunities. I'd like to give a country perspective as well as an international perspective. So in the during COVID and aftermath of COVID. So going on to the theme of this year's World No Tobacco Day, which links to industry interference and youth, the industry would continue with new technologies, new products. So this would continue to be our main challenge. But they would still play in there from their old playbook, which of course we all know. These are proven to derail the tobacco control efforts by the government. Government tobacco control interventions are usually reactive. We have been reacting to the industry. So, but COVID-19, what it might do is it would carve out a totally new landscape, both for tobacco control and tobacco promotion. So these are roles for both industry and the government. So it's end of the day, who takes the first steps. So we should not let the tobacco industry may be the first mover and take the first mover advantage. In terms of specific challenges, I would say, so like I said, they would be hijacking our policy and research agenda with their funds and create doubt on proven science and effectiveness of tobacco control measures currently in our countries. With every measure they would try to create, this would continue. And what we are seeing, even from the Maldives perspective, is that they are funding even private institutions, research groups, through the front groups like Foundation for Smoke-Free World, led by, of course, Big Tobacco, we all know. And they would infiltrate research institutions and think tanks, and also get renowned tobacco control advocates on their side to research for them. But in disguise. We already know some of our very close colleagues are working for tobacco control. The industry would continue to divide the international public opinion on these new products, the arguments particularly on the issue of harm reduction, which they have succeeded. They have already divided the scientific community. They would continue to exploit gaps in enforcement during the COVID emergency because governments have other priorities during this emergency. And still, many countries also do not have guidelines under Article 3.5. So industry can actually policy.
I think we have lost connection from Mr. Mohammed. So I request our chair to please summarize the session and so that we can proceed ahead.
Dr. Jagdish is not with us. So Dr. Sonu may be requested to conclude the session, right?
I think it was a very insightful session in which I think a lot of things were discussed, and they were really emerging challenges in the developing countries, be it India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, or any other countries. So we started with Dr. Mahesh Surya, who discussed about various type of tobacco industry interferences and his CCT experience, how he monitors the tobacco industry interferences there. Then we had a very good presentation by Mr. Syed Mahbul from Bangladesh, who talked about tobacco vendor licensing. It was supplemented by Dr. Nidhi Sejpal, and she also told about this Indian experiences of tobacco vendor licensing from few districts of India, and how various districts and even state have moved forward in vendor licensing thing, which is a relatively newer thing for us. And then Mr. Hassan Mohammed from Maldives was sharing the experiences of his country about the newer challenges and opportunities in Maldives. So I think it was another interesting session, which is related to the newer things and newer challenges in tobacco control, other than the traditional challenges which we used to face in everyday life. So thank you all. I think that it was a very wonderful session, and I would like to thank our chair, Dr. Jagdish Kaur, for chairing the session very nicely. And I think due to some connectivity problem, she is not there in this. And I also like to thank Dr. Mahesh, Mr. Syed, Dr. Nidhi, and Mr. Hassan for their insightful presentation. And I hope that the participants really like that. So, so that's all for it. And I think the feedback forms are already there. So you can fill the feedback, the participants can fill the feedback form for the session so that we can move to the next session.
Dr. Sonu, Dr. Jagdish is with us for some time. Yeah.
So Dr. Jagdish, are you with us? Dr. Jagdish? Hello? So Dr. Jagdish, are you with us? I think...
just showing on the screen actually.
Yeah, but connectivity is not there. I think maybe because she is not audible. Hello, Dr. Jagdish?
No, Dr. Sonu, no, she is not there.
Yeah.
I think disconnect.
Okay, so I conclude this session, and I hand over for the next session. I hand over again to Kritika and Garima.